Yeah. So, as you know, under the Challenge Fund, our objective was to support small and marginal women farmers of SEWA who are into cumin, salt, and vegetable. And so there are 3 challenge funds that are focused on these cumin, salt, and vegetable farmers. So what I will do is that I will give a breakup also, and also I will summarize all the learnings from all the 3 together in the slides that we will be going through. So it started in September 21 when we finally received the funds, and there are 3 FOs. These are the clusters actually, because we are working on a cluster approach. So total direct beneficiaries is around 435 who have actually benefited from the project. And indirectly, we have been able to create jobs for around 705. This is ongoing because this project will keep on going till August formally. And the commodities, of course, the salt, vegetables, cumin. So I have also given a breakup of the male and female and the youth that we have reached within this particular project. And because we work with only majority of female farmers, except in salt, where the family actually work together in the salt pans. So, majority, if you look at it, our beneficiaries are female. And out of the youth also, majority of them, almost all of them are female. Yeah. So this is the overview of the Challenge Fund. And what are the major problems and challenges that we have been able to address? So I think the major problem or the challenge that when we approached the Challenge Fund was, of course, that access to working capital at the start of the season was the biggest challenge. Because farmers don't have access to cheap credit. So if they borrow from traders, they have to pay a heavy interest on that particular produce, on that particular capital, and they are left with almost negligible income at their hands at the end of the season. So I think what we were able to do with the Challenge Fund is that actually we were able to provide a working capital loan to these farmers at a low interest rate. And we were also able to customize the repayment schedule, because this customization of also the repayment schedule is important, because unlike a traditional lender who is very clear that every month you need to pay or there is a particular schedule that is fixed, what we are able to do is that based on the weather conditions, about the status of the crop, about drought or the natural kind of disasters that have that the farmers face, we were able to also customize the repayment schedule based on the harvesting time or when the crop is harvested. What we have seen is actually because of this, we will come to a later slide. That is that there is an increase in profit, and this increase in profit, of course, because of lower interest rates. So we have been able to save on the interest rates. And the other thing, because we are working on a cluster mode, so in case of especially vegetables and cumin, they are able to also access quality inputs. Yeah. And then this particular harvesting season, what we have seen is that, because because SEWA follows a collective kind of a model where collectively decision making to production to marketing take place. So this collective marketing has led to better prices because we are able to create more volume. And of course, the sixth point is that we are able to provide, because we have larger volumes, we are able to directly access the market. So the price realization is far better because of the challenge. So what I have done is that the strength, weaknesses, threats, and the opportunities, the SWOT, if you look at it, so the strength is that we are following a cluster approach, because when we started with the Challenge Fund, at that point of time, we were, of course, very clear that it will be crop specific. But when we started implementing, we also wanted to follow a cluster approach, because, of course, because we're working with small and marginal farmers with small land holdings. So if we are able to aggregate the farmers together, then we have a larger kind of a base. And as a result, we will get better volumes. And this also because SEWA believes in collective decision making. So at the cluster level, there's collective decision making happens. There is a continuous capacity building that we have been providing So if we will share later on a separate slide what kind of support we have been providing. Then collective purchase and marketing, as I explained, that has helped us actually help the traders to collectively purchase from a larger group of farmers. And of course, it provided the farmers better market. And of course, linkages with market, both with the government and of course the private players. Weaknesses of the F4A enterprise, the major weakness that is not only for a cluster, but across India for small and marginal farmers is lack of warehousing facilities. So storage is a big problem. Because of the lack of storage, they have to quickly sell the produce in the market. And the other challenge that we face, of course, is the lack of transport, especially because we are with our farmers are in remote locations to actually collect the produce from the interior villages. The threats are, of course, there is a big cartelization at the market yards. These markets yard are actually completely under the purview of the government, but still the traders within the market, they form cartels and they depress the price, and that leads to lower pricing. And what are the opportunities? Of course, because we have a large member base, SEWA, because that there's a scope of actually keep on extending these clusters with more members. So we can keep on adding more members, or we can have maybe multiple clusters within a particular topic. Then direct market linkages with commodity houses and clearing houses, which we have been able to establish because, of course, again, volumes, because when you have volumes, then it's easy to approach directly with commodity house and clearing houses, which provides a better opportunities or better pricing for the farmers. Then collective purchase of inputs, that is something that we are working on. We believe that if they are able to get better input, production will go up. And of course, continuous capacity building of the cluster team and of course the farmers. And what we have also been able to do is appoint what we call business development teams at the cluster level, who actually look at, who works with the farmers on the business part of it. Now, this is actually the structure. I will not say this is an organization chart, but I will say this is a structure. The way we are implementing the challenge fund, this is not the flow fund, of course. Yeah. This is also not the organization chart. This is the structure by which we are implementing the challenge fund. So, of course, at the top is actually the SEWA team. And then we have a farmers group that we are reaching out through our field staff at the district level. And then directly it's the farmers. But the fund flow is, of course, it's directly from SEWA to the farmers because of course, some problems with the Indian income tax act. And if you just look at the right-hand side, I have put out the roles and responsibilities where the SEWA team, they are supervision, monitoring, documentation, capacity building, market linkages, 4P linkages. These are the things that SEWA does. Then the field staff in partnership with, of course, the main team, we do a cluster identification, profiling of the farmers, disbursement and collection of funds, implementing, supervision, monitoring, documentation, facilitating storage wherever the storage are available, and sales and market linkages. So these are the facilitations we do. We actually don't do it because we believe the farmers should be directly involved in the overall decision making and implementation. And that is the way at a farmers level, what we are trying to do, of course, aggregation, grading, and directly the farmers also have access to the market. So that is at a farmer level. So this is the overall, I will say, the structure, the way we have actually created for implementation of the challenge fund. This is again very dynamic. So this is not like, that this is cast in stone, that this is something that we need to follow. I think based on our learnings, we are customizing it, we are changing it so that our farmers benefit. So their total, of course, we have around 4 full-time members, then we have consultants. At the cluster, at the district level, we have a district coordinator and 2 business development team members that we have formed. And they are this team actually overall does, I have already explained the roles and responsibilities. Now, if you just look at it, because in SEWA, our members are the owners and managers of their own businesses. So here, actually, the actual implementation and decision making is actually undertaken by the SEWA members themselves. Yeah. So the whole role and responsibility of course, implementing and ensuring that, it's properly getting implemented, the farmers are getting the benefit. It all is a collective decision making that is done by the farmers themselves. And our role is actually to just facilitate this whole process. And if you just look at the figures, almost 30% of our members were benefited from the challenge by young women members of SEWA. So we have a monthly meeting that takes place regularly with all the clusters. Then there is a cluster visit that takes place at least minimum once a month, but we generally end up doing more. And then workshops on business planning. That is something that because we are looking at agriculture as a business, and we wanted to keep on communicating this aspect to our farmers, our team members. So almost every month we have business planning workshops on different topics around business planning. So that take place almost every month. So of course, that we have a MIS. We of course have the MIS. We have an Excel sheet that we of course have the formats from APFP. We have the regular meeting that take place at the cluster level, and of course the field visits, and of course the monthly meetings that we do. So all the data that is, we gather all this data and we monitor it based on the Excels that we have or the MIS that we have. And the responsibility, of course, at the field level is the BDO team, as I said, the business development team at the cluster level. And at of course, the SEWA level, it's like myself, then Meenakshi Ben is there, then of course Megha Ben is there. So the main challenge, if you ask us, what is the main challenge, is that what we have seen is that we are just touching a very small kind of base of our members or the farmers who actually need support. So I think availability of more funds as working capital is the major challenge. I think scaling is not a problem, because as I said, we have a large member base. I think the problem is actually the access to cheap funds as working capital. We are exploring. In some cases, we have tried to link with government scheme, but again, that's a very, very bureaucratic and laborious process, and a lot of documentations are needed. In some cases, our farmers don't have even title to land, so for them getting direct benefits from the government schemes, it's a little bit challenging. So kind of trainings that we have conducted, or some of the or who the farmers or the clusters have attended, of course, we started with a village profiling exercise. We created some kind of profiling tool for identifying farmers and of course identifying the clusters. And then we did a community value chain analysis through a leaky bucket exercise, which is very useful. I think we did it with almost all clusters. We asked the farmers or the members to actually identify or do the analysis of the existing value chain through the leaky bucket. Then after the leaky bucket, we did an asset-based community development planning. Again, this is a community-based kind of an approach where the farmers actually did this exercise. And of course, marketing was something, and branding exercise that we have done some trainings around it. We had private players coming and talking about what kind of expectations private parties have, and how what kind of expectation they have, and what are the kind of quality packaging that they are looking at. Then some other things that we keep on doing is, of course, improve methods of cultivation and technology. That is something that we keep on do a lot of, that we have tied up with research institutions, with experts, and that keeps on happening quite frequently. Another thing that we, of course, focus on, and especially in our salt, we are using solar pumps. So renewable energy is something that we are looking at. This also brings down the input cost of the farmers, especially when they use diesel generator sets to pump water. And the other thing that we our farmers are also keen because chemical fertilizer costs have gone up, and natural farming is something that we are promoting. A lot of kind of training happen around. So this is, I think, the overall structure, the way we implement it, and it started in September 21, as I said, and this is the process. If you look, or the enterprise operational flow. So we have a village, so it's like a bottom-up approach. So it started at the village, then it moves to the cluster level, then we have a district at the district or FO level. So it started at the village level with the feasibility studies or the village level survey. And where do we do the village profile and agriculture profile? Then we identify the cluster or group villages based on crops and number of members. Then, of course, the value chain, undertaking value chain take place to the leaky bucket, I explained. And we identify challenges. The members actually identify challenges based on, like, what are the most significant challenges in the value chain, and what are the things that can be quickly taken care of. Then we do a resource mapping through ABCD, that is the asset-based community development. So this is exercises. So this has happened at the cluster level. At the district level, of course, at the FO level, what we do is that we, based on this thing, we again prepare a business plan. Again, the business plan preparation, as I said, is a collective preparation of business plan. Then, of course, the implementation of the business plan. This is something we do, mapping of markets and financial institutions. And monitoring evaluation, I already told you how we do the monitoring and evaluation. And finally, of course, so this is the overall enterprise. Well, what are the challenges and what activities have been done to address them? So I think this is something that we encountered, and we are still, is the slow disbursement of funds. The way we would have liked the funds to be disbursed, it has not taken place. This is, of course, because of Indian tax regulation for NGOs. We have an act called the FCRA Act, which make it difficult for SEWA to directly transfer funds to from SEWA to the FOs, which are the district association. So we have to directly transfer to our members, but some of our members don't have bank accounts. They don't have access to a nearest branch. So for them, it's difficult to go to a very long distance to actually go to a bank and open an account, or actually take out funds from the account. So I think this is something that is a little bit challenging. Then coordination of cluster. Initially, when we started, of course, when you have a cluster-based approach, we have number of villages, number of members. It's very difficult to coordinate. So to overcome it, we came up with this idea of a business development team at the cluster level. So they are overall responsible for the implementation of the cluster programs and the coordination with the SEWA. Then capacity building, as I told you, that we are very clear that we wanted to focus on agriculture as a business, and we wanted to keep on communicating the fact that to our members that what you are doing at the end of the day is not just cultivating a crop, you are actually into business. So it's an agri-business venture that you are doing. And I think that for that, we are, as I said, I have already discussed about the different kind of activities that we do in terms of capacity building. And I think that is what we have been doing or able to do, since 70% of SEWA's members are in the farm sector. I think this is something that is very important for us. Business planning workshops and exercises. I think that is something that are very integral to our effort. And of course, marketing of produce, the market linkages, because just only building capacities and creating clusters is not enough. So I think linking them with markets, so they are able to get a better price. It's not that they were not linked to markets previously, but they are dependent on traders, or actually the traders themselves provide the loans to these farmers, and they have to sell them at a lower rate to the traders. I think that's what we have been able to take care of. This is actually the kind of output or the kind of actuals operations. I have actually listed some, I have shown some photographs also. We do that. And of course, APMC is the Agri culture produce marketing committees. These are actually government run marketing committees in every district, or some within a district there may be 2 to 3 also. And if you look at cumin, we had almost 500 quintals of, I think there's something, there's 800 metric tons of cumin we were able to sell, 80 metric tons of cumin we were able to sell. I think that particular figure got missing from the slide. And vegetables till now almost at 14 metric tons, and salt it's around 10,709 tons. So this is the total kind of our cluster, the focus clusters, the cumin vegetables. This is actually here, well, see items procured. Now, SEWA, because as I said in the very beginning that we, so every decision making or kind of implementation take place at the cluster level. So SEWA don't procure, yeah. So what we have done is that we are just facilitating collective aggregation at the cluster level. So the farmers, they collectively aggregate it, and then they collectively sell it in the market. So the procurement, so that's why I kept it blank, because we don't procure, but the farmers themselves at the cluster levels, these figures actually are the cluster volume sold. So these are kind of commodities they have been able to sell directly to the markets. Some pictures I have put, so there's a cumin, like, after grading the cumin, then we have potato that is getting sorted, and of course, end of a tomato, and 4Ps engagement, and we have been able to do a little bit of conversion with existing government schemes. But as I said, because farmers, some of our majority of our women farmers don't have land rights, so conversion with government scheme is a little bit challenging. And in some cases, we have been able to link with processors and cold storage chains. So these are all private chains. And linkages with market, both the government run procurement centers called APMC, then government private kind of because APMC, the traders are all private traders, and of course the private parties. So this is in the like a snapshot. Total sales is around $70,000, and expenses around that, and we end up having around 10,000. That is at the cluster, yeah. That is not SEWA. So this is at the cluster level for the 3 clusters together. So I think what are the kind of technical support or assistance that we have been able to provide? So I think with the private sector, and what we have done is that we have been able to provide trainings or technological know-how. Then market linkages and packaging, technological know-how in different, I think, improved methods of cultivation, improved methods of storage. Then market related, as I said, we organize workshops with private traders who actually tell them that what are the how the market operates, what kind of expectations are there in the market. And of course, the packaging in terms of how to package this particular produce and how to grade them. Government and ministries' convergence with existing schemes, some policy level interventions are taking place. Of course, at the NI level, capacity building, business planning, market linkages, these we have already elaborated on our previous slide. What are the kind of activities, specific market building or market linkages or capacity building exercises we have been doing. So this is in a snapshot, the technical support to assist them. So now what are the kind of impact in terms of NFO as an enterprise implementer? So I think what we, when we started, we realized that just focusing on a particular commodity might not be the right kind of a methodology or the strategy. So we came up with this whole cluster-based approach of a community development. And I think this has helped us in very focused approach in identifying challenges in each individual value chain and implementation of a strategy based on the challenges. Because again, if you just look at, and I told in the earlier kind of a slide that we are this cluster-based approach is also a community-led and community kind of an owned kind of a process. And as a result, the community is identifying, analyzing the business plan, the value chain, they are identifying the challenges, they are themselves collectively deciding which are the challenges they need support. And our objective is just to facilitate the whole process. And then of course, that I think, as I said, a community-based business planning approach. That's what our objective is through the leaky bucket, village profiling, the ABCD approach. And I think that is something what we have done. Instead of ourselves making a business plan, what we are saying is that the community decide based on their experiences, because ultimately they are the farmers, they are the experts who do farming on a daily basis, on a regular basis, every year. They have been doing it for generations. So the business plan that is evolved is through the collective efforts. And I think this actually provides ownership. When you are doing a community-based business planning efforts, then there is an ownership of the farmers or the cluster. And then also it helps us in overall collective decision-making, collective purchase of input, collective aggregation of produce, and of course, collective market. And our objective is to keep on providing and supporting these particular farmers in business planning, improved methods of cultivation, new technologies, natural farming methods, use of renewable energy for increased productions and lowering of cost. Then farmer-based beneficiary in the household. I think the biggest, what we have seen is actually in the first, this season, what we have seen is that actually low increase in income. Just look at a kind of so we have a small case study. I have just given a picture. So Janiben is a salt farmer from Surendranagar, and she is one of the beneficiary of the Challenge Fund. And previously she used to take loans from traders, and when once she took this Challenge Fund loan, if you just look at her income in this season has gone up by almost 1,10,000 Indian rupees. And this is a significant kind of a savings or increase in income. And I think similarly, there are many Janiben across our value chain who have been able to benefit and seen increase in income. The other thing, I think what SEWA keeps on focusing and of course, something that we are very focused about is actually the food security at the farmers level. So I think that is something that we are also looking at, that how can you also increase food security at the farmers level through a cluster base. And I think this Challenge Fund, what it has been able to do is actually, I think it has provide liberation of the farmers from the clutches of the middle. So I think that is something, this is a big empowerment kind of a movement in the lives of these small and marginal women farmers. Increase in agriculture production. Now this is too early, frankly, to say that there is an increase in the first year, because it's the first year of we have not even completed one cycle. So this is the first year, and I think it's too early to say whether there will be an increase in production. But I think that is something that we would like to, and that is what we are talking of: natural farming, renewable energy, quality inputs. And I think once you get quality inputs, we are able to link that particular thing up, and automatically I think this particular production will increase. And if you just look at in salt, we have seen individual farmers' earnings have substantially gone up. So I think production will also increase. And I think that is something that we are very keen that happens through, especially with linkages with quality inputs. So what are the lessons learned? So I think one thing is that, of course, we need to increase the challenge fund pool so that more farmers benefit. So with $51,000, we have been able to reach a significant, and if you just look at with an investment of $51,000, I think the kind of returns that we are getting from the field is pretty large and significant. So I think this is a good investment. So if you are able to increase the challenge fund pool, I think it will benefit more farmers, and I think it will create, then also it will automatically attract more private parties to come and play, because at present, no one wants to give loans to farmers because they feel that it's very risky. So I think that's a very risk capital and no one wants to touch it. Even regular banks don't want to touch it. So I think the challenge fund, if we are able to increase the pool and if we are able to show that farmers are actually able to not only increase their income, but actually they're returning that amount. So I think then there's a confidence in the market that more players will come. The cluster-based approach is the most feasible strategy for implementation of the challenge fund. And I think that is this due to, of course, the scattered production and small land holdings. And I think that is relevant for India and also other countries in South and Southeast Asia where the land holdings are very small. And it's very scattered production. A continuous capacity building, I think that is something that is extremely important. I think we have to keep on providing support to our farmers with new technologies, with improved methods of cultivation, of course, with access, with what the market requirement. We have to connect them directly to the market so that they also have an understanding what is actually the demand in the market. The other thing, what we have realized when we are operating and talking with private traders and clearing houses is that there is a need for farm gate grading. And I think at present, small and marginal farmers don't do grading and cleaning before they sell it in the market. So they actually, as a result, they get low price. And I think that is something that we will like to focus on. And I think something that our farmers have to start doing, that is the grading at the farm gate and of course cleaning. And once we see that if we do that, we get almost 52 rupees 100 per kilogram better pricing. This is something that the last one, that is the low cost warehousing. We need to come up with low cost warehousing and storage solution at the village level. So at present, storehouses or warehouses are extremely costly, or they are farther away from the farm gate. And I think that is something that we have to explore, and something even the APFP should focus on, if possible, is that how can you create low-cost warehousing and storage facilities? Especially in a country like India, where almost 40% of wastage in fruits and vegetables take place within farm and the market. So almost 40% of what the farmers are producing is getting wasted when they're transporting their produce from the farm to the market. So I think overall that is the SEWA's presentation